I'm Allie. Join me to do Cheryl's beaded bead, a nice variation on the standard right angle beaded bead, but upped a little bit and showing how to do wire guards and put them all together. If you need any materials, go ahead and look below the video to shop with us online to links to everything that we got. Gather up materials, which can be a vast many different ones, and your bead on it board, and we'll get started. So to start out making these beaded balls, you are going to need some 4mm beads. You can use bigger beads as well. It'll just change the count of the X number of beads that you need on the top. But I'm going to use 4mm bicones because in most of her samples, Sheryl made the 4mm Czech fire polished. That way you can see the difference of how the different shapes lend and sit when they become this little beaded ball. I have a size 10 needle here with some size 6 gray dragon thread that I'll be working with. And the first thing we're going to do is our right angle portion of the piece. We're going to be doing 4 right angle units. We're going to start with 1 gray, 1 of our pink, another gray, and another pink. So an AB pattern for our 4 beads. Drop that down to the base of your thread, and you're going to tie this into a square by doing 2 knots. Once you have your 2 knots, this establishes your first right angle unit. The silver beads will be the right and left sides of that right angle, and the fuchsia will be the top and the bottom. From here, we're going to build our next right angle unit. Our next right angle unit, we need a new top, which is going to be one of our fuchsia, a new right side of our next box, and a new bottom of the box. We're always coming out the right-hand side of the box previously. You're going to go, if the thread's coming out at the top, into the bottom of the box. If it's coming out the bottom, go in the top. So you're going opposite, because what that's going to do is round that out and pull in your next right angle unit. From here, you need to get to the right side of the right angle unit that you've just completed. Go through that top bead and come down through the bead on the right. That is 2 right angle units, 1 right there and a second one right here. From here, we're going to grab another bead for the bottom for the next unit, a bead for the right, and a bead for the top. Go into the opposite side of the bead from the unit before and pull that next right angle weave unit into place. From here, you want to get your needle and thread over to the right side of the box that you just completed. Now, here's the part that might be a little bit confusing, so you'll want to kind of take note of this. What we're going to be doing is we are going to be connecting the sides. We're going to use the first bead that we put on our thread and needle as the new left side of our box. The right side of our box is going to be that last gray bead. The top of the box is going to be a new fuchsia bead that we're adding. And the bottom of the box is going to be another fuchsia bead. So the first thing is I'm coming out of the top of the right-hand side. And as I come out the top of that right-hand unit, what I want you to do is grab your next top bead on, and you're going to sew down through the gray bead on the left-hand side. I'm not going to pull this super tight yet because I want you to understand how we're rounding it out. From here, I'm going to add my bottom bead, and then I'm going to sew back up through, just like we've been doing, that last bead from the unit before. Now I'm going to pull nice and tight, which is going to round this out into a ball. Actually, a little box. From here, you're going to notice 4 pink beads at the top, 4 at the bottom, and then your silver beads running down the middle. We're going to take this little beaded bead now and add X's between each section of our bicone, and then as well at the top and the bottom of the pink sections. To do so, coming out this silver bead there, core in the middle, I want you to pick up 111 in your first color, color A, 1B, another one in A. So for me, it's that silver, bronze, silver. Going to the next gray bead in the piece here. I'm going to take my thread and needle. We're coming out the right-hand side of that gray bead. We're going to go into the left-hand side of the bead above it. That's going to put these 3 beads right in the middle between those 2 gray crystals. Continue that same thing where you're adding 3 more beads. You're coming out the right side of that crystal, go up to the next one in line, and go through from the opposite side, which is going to lay those seed beads across the top. Once again, keep going. Silver, bronze, silver. Go from the bottom right to the next one, the top left. We're continuing on here then as we do this for a 4th time to get our 4th angle. Once you have this 4th one in place, what I want you to do is to reverse the direction that we're going. As we reverse the direction that we're going, I want you to add 1 11-0 seed bead, and then we're going to share that alternate color of 11-0 that's in the middle. Add the 1 seed bead, sew down towards the crystal below through that middle seed bead. Give a nice tight pull, make sure it stays in the middle there. Add 1 more 11-0 seed bead and sew in to the left-hand side of the bead below. And that's just going to make that simple little X. So again, we're coming out the crystal here. Add 1 more of your silver 11. Share your thread and needle going through that middle bead towards the next crystal. Add 1 more 11 and sew through that bicone below in that silver color. So we have not touched yet at all the pink bicones in the piece. We'll be doing that next after we finish making and completing all the X's between our silver crystals. Once you're done with the initial X's, going over and through those silver beads, you're going to bring your thread and needle out towards the pink beads. Again, remember those were the top and bottom of your right angle weave boxes. My thread is currently coming out of that last silver bead that I did the X for. I'm going to go through the pink bead that's at the top of that same right angle unit. As I come through the pink bead, I want you to add a silver bead between every pink bead as we tighten up this beaded bead. Add an 11, sew through the pink. Add an 11, sew through the pink. Once we do this on one side, we're going to do it on the other side, and then we're going to add our X's just like we did on above the silver beads. So here I've got 4 beads going through the outer edge of the pink. So I've got beads now through my whole top of my bead, and I'm going to flip it over and we're going to put beads between the pink one. How do we get our thread and needle from the top to the bottom? Go through the silver bead that would be part of that same right angle unit, and then sew through the pink bead. Again, that same right angle unit. Add an 11 between each of your pink beads. If you do not want to close up your top and bottom of your right angle weave, you can actually skip the 11-0s, just sew right through the crystals. That'll pull it a little bit tighter and finish your project off that way. Once you have the 11-0s between each one of your bicones, you can go in here then, and we're going to get ready to pull the X's, just like we did along the top, onto the sides of our bead. At this point now, we're going to create our X's on the top and bottom of our box using the same pattern. So my thread and needle are coming out of one of my pink bicones. I'm going to go to the opposite bicone and go through from the opposite direction. So my thread's coming out the top of the right hand crystal. I'm going to go into the bottom of the left hand crystal. Lay those 3 seed beads along the top of those beads. Coming out the bicone, add 1 11-0. Share through that middle 11-0. Add 1 more 11 and back through that original bicone from the opposite direction. So your thread again was coming out the top of this bicone. We did a figure 8 going through the bicones, through the seed beads, and now we're completing that 8 to do our X. You'll notice sometimes with my fingers, I just need to push the seed beads up into place so they fall between the bead rather than on the side. Just like we did getting from one side to the other, go through the original right angle weave, so through those original bicones, getting to the other side and repeating the X. As you get to the other side, once again, 3 beads go on, color 1, color 2, color 1, go to the opposite bead that sits across, and take your thread in the opposite direction. Thread's coming out the top of this bicone. I'm going into the bottom of the bicone that sits on the opposite side. Push those beads towards the center, and once you have that, add 1 more 11, go down through that bead that you're sharing in the middle. Again, we're doing a figure 8. Add 1 more 11 and up through that pink bead on the right-hand side. What this does is closes off this beaded bead so that it doesn't have any holes to it whatsoever. As you spin around and look, you'll have just series of X's everywhere along the ball. From here, we are going to add some wire guards. Now, whether or not you want to add wire guards to both sides, like I'm going to be doing, and creating and linking this as a bracelet, you can do that, or you can also just do a wire guard on one side if you want to add some chain, create an earring, or the look of that. You can simply just add 1. I'm going to be adding 2 so that way I can link them together in my design. Whether or not you link chain or bracelet, we're just going to be using some wire guards and some jump rings. Coming out of really any bead, grab a wire guard, any bicone I should say. Go down through the opposite side of the wire guard. And what you're going to want to do is go through an alternative color. So if your thread's coming out of pink, I'm going to go through the silver next to it. Pull that tight and circle up and reinforce. So go over to the other side here, go around the right angle weave, back till you're coming out that same pink bead where your thread started. When you're out through that pink bead where your thread started, once again, go through the wire guard, up through the side, down through the other side, and through the bead after that. From here, we're going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side of the bead. So I'm getting the thread. Make sure your thread goes right into that loop and that it doesn't escape like mine just did. There's nothing more sad than getting to the end and realizing that your thread had popped out the wire guard and that you can see it on your project. From here, I'm going through my next bead, which is my silver bead, and I'm going to go through that right angle weave till I get to the other side. So go through a pink bead, and it doesn't matter again which direction you're sewing through. You're just making sure that you're sewing from one bicone through the other, not going through any of your 11 seed beads. Once you get to the opposite side, and how do you know you get to the opposite side? You just look. So look and see, where's my opposite way that I'm going to sit to come out, that it's just to the opposite side of the bead, because it's a cube really. You're going to eye that up, grab your wire guard, do the same exact thing, adding in the wire guard between 2 of your bicones, reinforce it, and then your very last step is quite simple. The very last step, all that we have to do is go through, get our thread ends in the same place, and tie them off, burning them down with a thread burner. Once you make all of your beaded beads, what you can do is go in and take a jump ring, like this one is a 5mm 20 gauge jump ring. You can link your beads together, close up that jump ring, always past where you think it's going to be, and link them together to create really any piece of jewelry. Necklace, bracelet, earrings, you name it, you can create it with this beaded bead. This would go really perfectly as a pair of earrings with your anytime necklace or as a bracelet to wear with. At the end, what I'm going to do with my beaded beads is grab some chain. Same thing, open up your jump ring, pulling to the side. You can do it with 2 pliers also. I like to see how sturdy my nails are. Make sure I'm not going to break them. Grab in the last link of chain and close it up. This will hang down then nicely as a little necklace with all of those different birthstones, say, in the middle of the design. Thanks so much for joining me in making these Sheryl's beaded beads. As always, thank you, Sheryl, for another amazing idea. Everyone can give comments below that I can show to Sheryl if you want to give her a little thumbs up on the design. As always, if you need anything, look below the video, that little grayed out section, which has the video description. We'll put links there to the website to purchase everything that you need. Stay tuned also for our next inspirational design by subscribing if you haven't yet to this YouTube channel.